Hi, my name is Manuel Renga. I'm from Córdoba. That's a city in the center of Argentina. I came to the US around a year ago to study at the University of Illinois here at the Champaign-Urbana area. Before coming to the US, I was a student as well, and I worked for a bit as an engineer there. I didn't cook too much at the time, but now living alone, far from family, I've started cooking a bit more. What I'm going to do today is show you how to cook some empanadas salteñas. That's a traditional dish from the northwestern part of Argentina. Well, I will prepare some empanadas. Empanadas is a generic term that simply means some kind of filling that is surrounded, I guess, but by a dough, and those generally are either fried or baked. In general, in Argentina, empanadas take the place as a food that is normally eaten for large gatherings of people, or either to eat them before dinner or as a snack. So, and in my case in particular, it brings back some memories from large gatherings, people with friends, with family. I learned to make this dish a couple of years ago in Argentina, but I've been cooking it much more often when I'm here to bring it to friends and just try to share it. I'll tell you now about the ingredients we're going to use. On hand, we have the ingredients for the dough. This is a very simple dough, some flour, water, and some lard. We don't have very precise measurements of how much we use. We just try to mix some lard inside of the flour and then add water until we get to the correct consistency. And of course, we use some salt for that too. Then for the filling, we have some beef. In this case, I'm using around half a pound, useful for a bit over a dozen empanadas. It varies depending on the size of them. This is some onion. This is 2 medium-sized potatoes that I have previously boiled, and then also red bell peppers, some hard-boiled eggs, and we should use green onions, but we don't have them today. And then we have parsley, paprika, cumin, black pepper, chili flakes, and also some more salt. To prepare the dough, we'll start with some all-purpose flour. I'm using around 2 pounds of flour right now. I'll now add it's around a spoonful or a couple of spoonfuls of some lard. This is the only ingredient that is not very easy to find here in the US, but I've normally been able to find it just fine in most large grocery stores. In general, it's in the Mexican section and then I just disperse the lard in the flour just using my hands. So you can see I'm just making it fit inside of here. And then once it's dispersed, I can add some water until I get to the correct consistency, and I'll show you how it is. It's important to have the salt, otherwise it doesn't taste good at all. This is around 2 pounds of flour. So generally we try to shoot for 2% weight of flour. This is around 20 grams or something like that. So this is around 15 milliliters or 3 tablespoons of salt for this amount of flour. Adding more water as needed. This takes a couple of minutes. Now this is more or less the kind of texture we're looking for. Just when it's not very sticky anymore or very crumbly, you can stop. First, to make the filling, we'll fry some onions and some red bell pepper. Just continually dicing the onions here. This is small dice, that doesn't have to be very as small. Fire up the mechanisms. And here I'll start frying the onions, also with some lard. So I'll wait till the lard gets hot in the pan, and I'll also add then the red bell peppers. This is also finely diced. It doesn't need to be very thin. Here, it being small helps, but the quality of the size doesn't matter too much because everything that mixes. Let it grease. The lard is so hot. I can add the onions, add some salt, the onions. Not much. I'll season the filling once everything is together. I'll add the red bell peppers too. And while this is cooking, this should cook until the onions are transparent. So once this is done, the thing we'll add is the beef that should also be thinly diced. I'll show you in this case I have some cut in small layers, and now I'm doing thin stripes and then thin cubes for the beef. Again, this the pieces should be small, but if any piece is a bit larger, it's not the end of the world. This is not a high precision thing. This is big. Okay, trying to have everything small, so ready. So that it cooks at the way we want it to cook. Well, now that the onions are, you can show this, they're a bit more transparent and also golden. We can separate this to balls, so we can add a bit more lard to the pan and fry the beef here. We'll get a bit more. Lard here, and we can add the beef and quickly fry it. So this is just a quick thing. This is getting, because the pieces are very small, this shouldn't take more than a couple of minutes. And just the cute browning. And it's looking good now. So we're adding back the onions and the red bell peppers. And once we add everything back, we let it fry for a bit longer. Then once this has fried, again, we can think of now adding the seasonings. Well, first, the only seasoning that can be kind of complicated, but it's very important to have here is cumin. Cumin is kind of strong sometimes, so if we do too much, it can ruin the empanadas. I usually start with half a teaspoon of cumin, and then I add the rest of the seasonings and probably the spices, and I'll probably have to add that more cumin later. But this is so it's just that I don't over season the cumin. So this is paprika. I don't measure it. What I do is normally try to shoot for some color. The red color from the paprika should show in the filling. So that's one thing. A little bit of salt too. Once I have everything, if I go into this, I can. So this first seasoning, so this is black pepper, and then I'll add some chili flakes. Food from Argentina is not normally very spicy, but you can add chili flakes to your own spiciness liking. This is the first seasoning, simply so that the flavors kind of melt together. So then I'll turn down the stove to the minimum and I'll add the rest of the things that are already cooked. So I'll add the potatoes, which are small here. So again, a small dices, and then I also roughly cut in small pieces the hard-boiled egg. Again, this is better if it's small, but it's not the end of the world if it's kind of rough size. This is 4 hard-boiled eggs, normally for 1 pound of beef, and 2 medium-sized potatoes and 2 medium-sized onions and 1 red bell pepper. So like this. Add them here. A little bit of fresh parsley too. This is maybe a third of a bunch of parsley. This is still to the lowest. No, I started with high heat to brown everything, and now it's at the lowest heat. It's simply to keep everything warm. But this is mostly already cooked. So now all I have to do is check the seasoning and the spices. So yeah, please. But this is, I did more cumin. So I'll add another half of a teaspoon, which is normally what I use here, around a whole teaspoon for a pound of beef. And then I'll add some more paprika. Here, I want to get to the correct color, so the paprika should show some of the color, and I think it's missing also some salt, but not all. Now the only thing that is missing is the green onions, but so for the next time maybe. I'll give it a last taste test. That's good. And now we can go to filling the dough and frying it. So now we're going to make the empanadas. These are going to be fried. It's also, we could bake them, but in this case fried. I just this is maybe 2 or 3 inches of oil. I'll be hitting here, and so meanwhile I'm going to make the discs of dough. When I want to make a small batch of empanadas, it's easier to have them made one by one and then filling them, especially if it's just myself cooking, than to make a large sheet. Maybe I don't have the space at my home. I make some. I make a bowl, a couple of balls, and then just press them. So it's something like this now. And now I'll add the filling. The filling should normally be at less filling than it feels okay to add. If it feels like it's not enough, then it's probably good. And we just close the empanadas. Particularly here, when we are frying them, it's important for them not to get there, not to spill out of the filling. I usually make batches of 3. I fry them in batches of 3. The oil should be hot, but not extremely hot, so that they don't burn. Okay, now I'm finishing the last banana, and then again closing it so that it doesn't spill. And I'm adding them this oil. We could fry them in lard too, but in this case I'm just using vegetable oil. Just add them here. I can show you here that the oil is bubbling, but not extremely so. That should be more acidic, because if it's boiling too much, then it only gets crisped in the top, but it doesn't cook it through. These are frying now. This takes 3 to 4 minutes. It's not a very long time. If they are, it's more or less in 3/4 of the way. The heat of the stove should be around that. And if we were to bake them, it usually takes around 25 minutes to bake in an oven at around 350 to 400 degrees. If we bake them, we would also add some egg wash, but in this case, it's not something we can do. So, well, these are the empanadas. I usually make them for friends. I sometimes make them for myself, but I think it's fun to make them for other people. This is something nice to bring to someone's house, because they are kind of individual serving. You can eat 1 or 2 or 3, but it's kind of individual size served. So if you make, let's say, 12, you can bring them to your friends, and they can add to pretty much any dinner or lunch party that you're having. This should take around 1 more minute and we should have them. It's ready now. I'm taking them out and they should drain on this is a rack with it's some paper towels. Once that's done, we should let them a couple of minutes, at least a couple of minutes to rest, but they are served good for a couple of hours after they are fried, and even they can be reheated in the oven.